Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Cyclone InCYders here on ISUtv Mediacom Channel 18. We are live every Mondays at 8 p.m. here on Mediacom Channel 18. Join with me once again today, Dean Berhow-Goll of the Iowa State Daily, Alex Helsed, also of the Iowa State Daily, and Kody Peterson here of ISUtv. Guys, we were all down at the game on Saturday in Manhattan, Kansas, a loss for Iowa State, 79-70. Kind of the initial thoughts from you guys, turnovers, missed opportunities for Iowa State, giving up quite a few offensive rebounds that's led to some second chance points. So kind of your overall take of what happened down there in Manhattan.
The first thing that I take away is got to be turnovers. Yeah. I was checking this out earlier today. They average just under 10 turnovers at home, and on the road they're about just over 15. Yeah. So my takeaway is that I think they're just more uncomfortable on the road. I think that they feed a little bit off the crowd, and I just don't know that they really get into their niche when they're on the road. I think that they are a little bit uncomfortable, feel a little bit out of place, and I think that you really saw that, when they turned the ball over 20 times. They weren't crashing the glass as often as they do, say, at Hilton. Yeah. And I think it was just a little bit of timidness in the octagon. Yeah,
it wasn't an effort issue. Fred Hoiberg, we'll hear from him here in just a second, wasn't an effort thing from Iowa State. It was more just they weren't able to play a complete game of basketball, kind of got out of it from the beginning. Alex, was that kind of what you thought? I mean, weren't able to kind of rebound. They got close. We're down one at half, but weren't able to finish it out.
Well, like Dean said, Hoiberg after the game summed it up. He said offensive rebounds and turnovers. Dean already talked about the turnovers. Yep. The Cyclones had 14 offensive rebounds, but they didn't really capitalize off of them. They only had, I think, 10 second chance points compared to 20 second chance points from Kansas State, who I think had 13 offensive rebounds. One big key was Clyburn. He didn't have any offensive rebounds, and like Hoiberg said earlier today, a big part of Clyburn's game is creating his own shots, manufacturing his own shots, and a lot of times he does it at the free throw line, which he didn't get to, and offensive rebounds, which he didn't get any of those either.
Let's hear from Fred Hoiberg and some of the players after that loss to Kansas State on Saturday.
Turnovers and second chance points did in the Cyclones here at Bramlage Coliseum in Manhattan, Kansas. The Cyclones fall 79-70 to the Kansas State Wildcats and drop to 16-7 on the year.
We did a great job in the first half, I thought, on the glass, and they just they got too many of them at key times down the stretch. It just seemed like every time a shot went up, they got the rebound, and it led to points.
Kansas State capitalized on Iowa State's ball security issues, turning the Cyclones' 20 turnovers into 27 points.
Got it to a one-point game. I took the lead for a little while, got it, down 1.5. We felt good. Like I said, we just didn't get the stops that we needed to. Just turn the ball over. We can't do that on the road.
Tyrus McGee kept the Cyclones close in the second half, scoring 15 points, but an 8-0 Wildcat run with 11 minutes to play proved to be too much to overcome. Corey Lucius led Iowa State with 16 points, and Melvin Edgem had another double-double with 13 points and 11 rebounds. The loss leaves the Cyclones in a three-way tie for fourth place in the Big 12 at 6-4. They'll have another chance to pick up a road win in their next contest at Texas. Iowa State pummeled the Longhorns in Ames, but Texas will get some help Wednesday night when their star point guard, Myck Kabongo, returns from a 23-game suspension. Reporting from Manhattan, Kansas, Kody Peterson, ISUtv.
And there you hear from Fred Hoiberg and some of the players. And as we were talking about before that, guys, 20 turnovers for Iowa State in that game. And when they seem to turn the ball over on the road, it's really, it really hurts them to be able to pull out a win. And as we were looking at, Dean, those turnovers led to some second chance points for Kansas State as well.
It did throughout the entire game, but really Kansas State capitalized in the second half. 16-1 was the difference in points off turnovers in the second half. Yeah. Second chance points were 17-3. Like you said, Alex, Iowa State, they had 14 offensive rebounds compared to Kansas State's 12, but the difference was that Kansas State capitalized on it.
Yeah, and one thing that Hoiberg mentioned is Kansas State has only given up 70 points 3 times this year, twice to Iowa State, once to Michigan, who's a top 5 team in the country. The fact that they could score 70 points and still forfeit basically 20 possessions is a pretty good sign for them. But you can't turn the ball over 20 times on the road, especially when they were averaging 11 turnovers per game in Big 12 play entering the game. 9 more turnovers per game, I think, and you lose by 9. That's a pretty big difference. That's
definitely an area of concern. And Corey Lucius, a guy who was in foul trouble throughout most of that game, he had 4 turnovers in the few minutes that he really did play. And I think that kind of took Iowa State out of their element. I think when Corey Lucius isn't in the game, they're not running that fast tempo offense, really kind of take them out of what they normally like to do, shoot the ball, get the ball moving. It seemed like they kind of got slowed down. Kody kind of took them out of their rhythm.
Right, yeah. He's really important as far as keeping the flow of the offense. Yeah. When Boo Boo Paolo comes in, that is Lucius' reserve, he does an all right job, but there's just not that same flow where the ball's really moving around, moving side to side like Hoiberg really mentions, and keeps the offense clicking.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the line. I mean, Iowa State had trouble. Let's see what the rebounding numbers were: 27-26. Still had the rebounding margin, but they still got dominated inside on when Kansas State was on offense. And I think they really had no answer. George Niang was not really that physical presence. I think that's one concern coming into this season that we really had with this team was going to be where they're going to be able to contest with some of these big post players in the Big 12 because, a lot of teams can shoot the ball like Iowa State, but can they defend in the post and can they have a solid post presence?
That was kind of the big thing that I was thinking about on the way home from Manhattan was that Thomas Gibson at Hilton, I mean, he had 9 minutes because he was in foul trouble for basically the whole game. He had 4 points. Well, here he went 6 of 8 from the field. I mean, he had 16 points and 7 boards. 3 of them were offensive, but he was a big factor underneath. And, Percy Gibson only played 3 minutes. You didn't see any of Booker, and I think Hoiberg just kind of realized that they weren't going to win the game underneath. They were going to win the game if they were going to hit threes. Yeah. And that's kind of something I wanted to touch on, what you were mentioning, Kody, is that when Lucius went out, you're right, Boo Boo, he has solid minutes. Hoiberg loves when he comes in and gives him the effort defensively and he takes care of the ball. But where he struggles is really distributing. Towards the end of the second half, Lucius picks up his second, and Kansas State closed on a 14-6 run. Yeah. I mean, they were up 26-19. Kansas State closes and they end up leading at half. It takes away all the momentum.
Is it safe to say, I think Hoiberg even said it after the game, that Kansas State revealed some of their team's weaknesses? I mean, obviously, when this team's shooting well, and I'm not saying they didn't shoot well. They shot 12 three-pointers. Normally, on any given night, that should get you a win. But, Kansas State was able to answer that. I mean, where were these weaknesses? What kind of holes did Kansas State find, do you guys think?
Well, I think one weakness is their offense without Lucius and Boo Boo.
And Clyburn, for that matter.
Yeah, I mean, because the end of that first half with Boo Boo and Lucius each having 2 fouls, it was just really slow. And I think that's a big weakness. They got to find ways to keep the offense up-tempo because that's the style of the offense for Iowa State. They got to keep it up-tempo even when the key things aren't working for them.
Right. Kody, what do you think was the reason Will Clyburn struggled so much? I mean, he shot, 2 of 9 from the field, both of them three-pointers, 6 points in the game. Didn't even get to the free throw line. It seemed to me like he just wasn't being as aggressive as he had been in the past few games. Is that what you saw too? Well,
like Alex mentioned, with both of the point guards out, Clyburn had to handle some of the ball handling duties. Yeah. And that's really not where they need him. He's been really good about getting offensive rebounds, getting to the line, and he's really effective at the 3 and 4 positions. And that's maybe where he needs to be more often. But with the 2 guards out, he wasn't able to get into his flow.
I think we kind of learned how important Will Clyburn really is to this team. When he's not producing, they're missing those points. When you have 20 turnovers, you need some points from somewhere. They got some from Tyrese McGee, 15 in the second half alone. But I think we really need to see a complete game from Clyburn because that's when Iowa State's playing their best.
I think we found out a lot about this team. I think we kind of found out Corey Lucius kind of runs the show. I mean, kind of the floor general. Yeah. But at the same time, Iowa State goes as Will Clyburn goes. Yeah. And he obviously wasn't going at Kansas State. Yeah. And also, you mentioned McGee. The only reason they were even in the game early in the second half, Lucius goes out 47 seconds into the game, sits out for about 5 minutes. But the only reason they were even in that game is because Tyrese McGee shot out of this world. 11 straight points, and 3 of them were threes deep, off screens. That's really the only reason they were in the game. So I think, based on that, we really found out a lot about the Iowa State's identity.
Go ahead, Alex.
I think just one other thing about Clyburn is I think it's going to be tough for Iowa State to win a Big 12 game when he doesn't get at least double digits in points.
Definitely. And this Iowa State team, 1-4 on the road, guys. I mean, they've been in each of these losses, though. I mean, they've never count them out on the road. Went down to the wire with Kansas, took them to overtime. Obviously that loss to Tech hurts now. Looking back at it, really hurts with the way the Big 12 is shaping up right now. But why is this team struggling on the road so much? What do you think is the reason they haven't been able to win?
To be honest, I said it earlier, I don't think they find their comfort zone. Yeah. I mean, certainly they're still able to shoot the ball on the road. I mean, you saw they went 12 of 27. They're shooting the ball well, Tyrese McGee was. But I just don't think that they found their comfortability. And you mentioned Clyburn. I think he's a guy that really thrives when he is comfortable. And when he is comfortable, he's really aggressive. And he just wasn't at Kansas State. He didn't crash the boards. He didn't drive a lot. And I'm sure, credit that to Kansas State. I'm sure that they game planned a lot around Clyburn and his offensive game, but I just don't think they got comfortable.
I think the comfortability was one thing, but I think another thing is each game seems to have its own different reason. You look at Texas Tech and TCU, or they won TCU, but Texas Tech, they were just slowed down a lot.
Yeah.
Oklahoma State and Kansas, they just one possession. They didn't close out those games. They could have had them, whereas Kansas State was kind of the turnovers. Another big thing is, I mentioned this last week, and it keeps recurring stat, but the top 6 teams in the Big 12, the consensus ones that everyone kind of has in the NCAA tournament picture, are 25-4 at home. It's tough to win at those places on the road, and Iowa State's had a chance to win out a couple of them. They just haven't been able to close them out.
No doubt about that. Iowa State is a good team at home, and I think that home court, and we talk about this every week, it's definitely helps them, definitely doesn't hurt them, 20 straight for them. But what do they need to clean up moving forward, Kody? I think that obviously for me it's that they need to play a complete game of basketball. It seems to me that once they get if they get a hot start, I talk about this every week, but I think it's crucial for this team to get out to a hot start, especially on the road, because in these Big 12 environments it's hard to make up ground.
Right, and what we noticed at Kansas State was getting all the loose balls. All the 50-50 balls were going to Kansas State. And off the loose balls, somehow they get a three-pointer. And it was just a backbreaker for Iowa State. And those are the type of plays on the road that you have to make to win.
Any final thoughts on this Kansas State game, or do you guys want to move on to Texas?
I think I just want to expand off of what needs to be cleaned up. I think Iowa State needs to find a closer. Okay. I mean, they really haven't found that guy that they look to in the waning moments. Last year, obviously, you have Royce White. Scotty made some big shots, Scott Christopherson, that is. But I feel that Will Clyburn needs to step up, and he needs to be their go-to guy in the end. It doesn't mean that he has to score 20 points a game like he had in the kind of the middle stretch here in the Big 12 where he's really hot. But the point is that he needs to step up, and he needs to take control of the game in the end when they need him to.
Yeah. That's an interesting comparison between Clyburn and Royce White, because they're both pretty good scorers. They're both good in their own ways, but Clyburn isn't as vocal out there, and I think that kind of what separates him from being a leader, though.
Sure.
I think that's what's going to make him, just an average player to a great player. I'm not saying that he can't be. I mean, there's a lot of games left to be played, a lot of important games left to be done. I mean, they're just starting the second half of the Big 12 schedule. Kansas State was the second half. So they've got a lot of room to move on. But let's move on to this Texas game. Big road matchup coming up for Iowa State. Picked up a win against Texas earlier this season. Pretty easy win for 82-62. Pretty dominant start for Iowa State to start the Big 12 season with Texas. But Texas is a little bit different now. They've got Myck Kabongo back, their sophomore point guard, who was suspended for the first 23 games, I think it was, of the season. Even talking with the coach Hoiberg today and some of the players, they don't really know what to expect from this team. And Kabongo, you don't know how he's going to, how he's developed over the last year. Obviously, in the 3 games Iowa State played Texas last season, didn't really contribute a whole lot. I think he had 10, 12 points each one of those games. But he's a guy that can be a difference maker on offense, no doubt about it.
I think that there are probably 3 things that are going to be majorly different about this game. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Myck Kabongo. He's coming back. He's the heart and soul of their team. That'd be like Royce White not playing for Iowa State last year.
Yeah.
You also look at Sheldon McClellan, or Shea McClellan. He plays 1 minute at Hilton, and it was because Rick Barnes wasn't happy with his effort, wasn't happy with his performance, and so he played a guy in his place for basically the entire game. And then lastly, they're playing on the road where they're 1-4, completely different than playing at Hilton. Yeah. I think all 3 of those things are going to factor incredibly into the game.
This Texas team is 10-13 overall, 2-8 in the Big 12. That's not typical of Rick Barnes' coach team. Why have they struggled so far this season, Alex, and what do you think Iowa State needs to do to beat Texas on Wednesday?
Well, I think Hoiberg kind of said it perfectly earlier today. He said, they don't have their leader. If Iowa State didn't have, say, Lucius, a guy that handles the ball, runs the offense, they might look a little bit different too. Also, they've lost a couple of close games. I think they lost a couple. Their first 2 losses were overtime losses. I think to beat them, maybe contain Kabongo, because it's going to be interesting to see what he does. They have seen him. They've seen him 3 times last year because they played him in the Big 12 tournament. I think he averaged 10 points and 4 assists against them. And the interesting thing about him is it'll be interesting to see if he is rusty or a little over pumped up. It'll be interesting to see how he reacts to his first game after 23.
Yeah. Let's hear from Fred Hoiberg and some of the players about facing Myck Kabongo. Obviously going to be a tough test for them on Wednesday down there in Austin.
I'm not sure what to expect right now. We can watch all the film we want of their recent games, but, it might just be a completely different team with Kabongo out there running the show. I anticipate they'll be playing faster, and we've got to do a great job slowing them down. Kabongo hurt us last year in our game, especially at Texas, and then he did a good job in the game at the Big 12 tournament as well. Both games that we lost. So. It's just going to be an important week of prep. I think the biggest thing we got to focus on is taking care of ourselves and what we didn't do in that game against Kansas State. Get back to taking care of the basketball and get back to getting the ball off the glass, which will create offense on our own. So those were obviously the two keys in the game and that resulted in the loss down in Manhattan.
Winning on the road is tough to do, and they've probably been waiting for this game for a while. I know they weren't too pleased after they lost here, so I bet you they're gunning for us down at their place.
Just how he beat us down the floor on a couple of occasions. He's a one-man fast break. He's as fast with the ball, I think, as anybody in our conference, and the kid's a heck of a player. And obviously he's going to be chomping at the bit to get back out there after missing the first 23 games of the season. We'll watch a lot of film on what he does, and then on what their other guys do as well. I think the one thing he'll do is help their shooters. He'll get the ball to those guys in spots where they can knock down shots. They've certainly got capable shooters, and then they got some big, long players that are physical on the interior, and we didn't do a great job the first game against them on the glass. So that's the big thing. Going through our stats for the entire year, when we can get the ball off the glass, when we take care of the basketball, we generally win the game.
Having a point guard always changes. Always changes any team. So we're going to have to contain them. I think we did a pretty good job on them. When we played them last year, but I think we'll be fine.
It's a wide open race right now, and we feel good about our team. Obviously, have to make some corrections from what we did not do in the last one against Kansas State. But for the most part, this team has responded after tough losses. I anticipate we'll have a couple great days of practice and go down there and put in a game plan against a talented Texas roster. And hopefully come out with a win.
All the odds are against you. You have 10 to 12,000 fans cheering against you. You don't get many calls, and to play a perfect game is how you get wins. So we just have to limit our mistakes and come in focused, and if we do that, I think we can take care of this game on Wednesday.
So you have it. There's Coach Hoiberg and some of the players talking about what it's going to take to really bounce back from a tough loss down there in Manhattan to beat this Texas team on Wednesday. Iowa State, though, is 5-1 after losses, and I think that really speaks a lot to how this team is pretty resilient. That's pretty tough to go, down to Manhattan, lose a tough game like that, a chance to take first in the Big 12, and they lose it. So what's it going to take, Alex? There's Myck Kabongo's coming back. How are they going to be able to stop him?
Or to go back
How do you prepare him? Yeah. How do you prepare for him in the first place?
To go back on the bounce back first,
yeah.
That is a very good quality of the team so far. You lose a tough game to Kansas that seemed like they should have had. Yeah. They bounced back that weekend.
Right.
Same with Oklahoma State. They bounced back in a game against Texas Tech that people kind of give them flack for losing.
Yeah.
They bounced back all three of those.
Yep.
But Hoiberg alluded to it today. Nobody knows what to expect from Kabongo.
Yeah.
Texas has been without him 23 games. There's nothing you can watch this year. The good thing for the Cyclones is they faced him 3 times last season, once in Ames, once in Texas, and in the Big 12 tournament. So I think they're going to have to watch a lot of film, and I think one thing they can expect from Texas is probably a little bit more up-tempo.
Yeah.
Kabongo's a guy that can move up and down court, a one-man fast break, I think, as Hoiberg put it today.
Keys to success, Dean, do you have any for this game?
Well, I'm curious about Myck Kabongo. I wonder if they'll put Chris Babb on him, or if they'll keep Babb on Julian Lewis. I'm not exactly sure. That's something to keep an eye on.
Well, Babb did guard Kabongo last year, I believe, and had some success against him. So,
But I believe that they need to be able to handle the runs on the road. That's something that they very much struggled with.
Sure.
At Kansas State, halfway through the second half, they really let the game get away from them.
Yeah.
Kansas State goes on an 18-5 run. 16 of those points came off of a turnover or an offensive rebound, which is really kind of a highlight of the reason they lost that game. But they need to be able to handle runs. At Kansas, they did it. Kansas State did it at Hilton, like an exemplary road team needs to. But I believe that they need to answer those runs, and I think that they have to be able to take care of the ball. Again, they're averaging 15 turnovers on the road compared to less than 10 at home. So they have to keep Corey Lucius on the court, and they have to stop turning the ball over. Yeah. And I also believe Clyburn has to score in double digits.
Yeah, going into the Kansas State game, I think one key that I think Matt brought up was that they needed to get off to a quick start. That's something that they struggled with on the road.
Yep.
I think they started down 10-2, or they were down by 8 points pretty quick at Kansas State. They ended up losing by 9. So I think a quick start is going to be another key to finally getting a road win other than just the TCU
Well, there's a lot of things to factor into it, and obviously rebounding is one of the big things. Iowa State's really prided themselves on this year. They got out-rebounded against Texas earlier this season. I think it was only by 1 or so. But ISU hit 11 threes to kind of make up for that. Texas really struggled from the field in that game, which is why they were able to get a 20-point win. Guys, want to get your quick predictions before we hit the break. Who wins this game on Wednesday?
I just wanted to get in here that, we're talking about Iowa State's road woes.
Yeah.
But let's not forget that it's against the 3 top teams in the league. Discounting the Texas Tech game.
That's a great point. Yeah.
So I think they have the talent to take these games on the road, and I think they're going to down in Austin. I think they're going to have another good shooting night. They've proven that that's one of their staples, and I think they'll pull this one out.
Alex?
Yeah, I think so too. I think they rebound. I think they moved to 6-1 off of losses, and I think one person that rebounds big time, I think, is Clyburn. I think 6 points for him, no offense rebounds is not really typical of him. I think he bounces back and is a key to the reason that they beat Texas and sweep them.
Awesome, guys. Thanks a lot. Dean and I are going to give our predictions in the third segment. But coming up next, Iowa State assistant women's basketball coach Billy Fennelly joins us in studio to talk about the Cyclones' 3-0 record in the last 3 games. You're watching Cyclone InCYders.
Tune in to the weekend pregame, Fridays from 2 to 4 on 88.5 KURE. Dan Tracy, Dean Berhow-Goll, Spencer Hughes, and the KURE sports team bring you the latest in the world of sports. It's the weekend pregame on 88.5 KURE and online at KURE885.org.
Welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Joining us in studio, we got a very special guest. He's the assistant coach of the Iowa State women's basketball team, Billy Fennelly. Billy, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate you having me.
17-5 to start the year, 8-4 in the Big 12. Not a bad start to the season as a whole. In the Big 12, how have you kind of assessed this season so far for you guys?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head, Matt. I think non-conference, obviously, our only loss is at Iowa. Game Chelsea Poppins didn't play in. Was an ugly loss, but Iowa's a really good team.
Yeah.
And then our 4 other losses, twice to Baylor, who's by far the best team in the country. We lost at Oklahoma State in probably the only game all year that I would say we really didn't show up to.
Yeah.
And then we kind of gave one away at Kansas. But really to be 17-5 right now, we're done with Baylor. And kind of the way we've looked at this season is everyone has to play Baylor twice. Everyone's going to lose to Baylor twice. They're going to be 18-0. They're the best team in the country. They're one of the best teams in the history of the sport.
Yeah.
So really, everyone's playing for second place. I know it's hard. Everybody wants to win every game, but really, you're playing for second place. Right now, we're 8-4. Oklahoma's 8-3. We were lucky enough to beat them here at our place. That's our next game, so that's our focus. Obviously, we've won 3 in a row, so we're excited about that. So I think we're headed in the right direction. Obviously, with a lot to play for, and we'll see how we finish it up.
At this point in the season, do you think the team's performing better than you all expected at this point in the year?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I really like our group. I think we have a really good senior core that's taken a lot of leadership roles. Obviously, Nikki Moody and Bryn Williamson have really stepped up in their sophomore campaigns to bring a lot. And Halle Christofferson's having the year that everyone thought she could have, but, you didn't want to put too much pressure on her as a junior. But she's having a really good year, an all Big 12 type year. So when you put all those things together, we're not real deep in the bench. But, those kids, once you get into grind games and you're playing close games, you're not going too deep into your bench anyways.
You guys are riding a 3-game winning streak coming into a big game here against Oklahoma. What kind of went right for you guys against Kansas State? You guys seem to be shooting the ball well. Pretty dominant win for you guys.
Yeah, we did. It was the first time in a long time. We really we looked like Fred's team out there. I told him we were scoring like crazy, and then we didn't want to play any defense in the second half. But 87 points for us is like the men scoring 120. But it was good. It was nice to see shots going in. Kansas State's a little bit different team. They're really undersized. Yeah. So they present a different kind of matchup, but our kids were able to get the ball inside. Our post players finished. I think Pop had 20 and 12 at the half. Yeah. So, it was nice to take advantage of the matchup issues because you never know how you're going to handle that. But nice to get off to a fast start. Second half wasn't great, but it's always a lame excuse, but it's a hard halftime speech when you're up 22 at the half. But our kids hung in there. Never really got closer than 16. That's what it ended up. So any night you win by 16 in this league, we'll take it.
When Chelsea Poppins is at double-double at halftime, you can't really complain too much. You can't get her on her too much in the locker room, can you?
Yeah, it was a pretty easy halftime speech, and you just hope the kids show up and at least do a little something in the second half. We did enough to hang on, and it was nice to get everybody in and everybody make a bunch of shots, and hopefully we carry that over to our next game.
Nikki Moody really seems to be playing her best basketball. Obviously, just as a sophomore, as you mentioned, really having a great sophomore campaign. What's made her so much more comfortable, it seems like, this year? She seems to be moving the ball better, getting all of her teammates involved. What's been the key difference between her from last year to this year?
I think last year she got thrown right into the fire and had to play through really good things and really bad things. And, you know, I think she averaged 30 minutes as a freshman in our league against Odyssey Sims, Angel Goodrich, Tiffany Bias, kids that are going to be in the WNBA, no doubt about it. So she got thrown into the fire. She learned the hard way. For a while this year, I think she was leading the nation in assists. I think she's third now at 7.5 a game. Obviously, she has the ball in her hands a lot, so she turns the ball over maybe a little more than people would like, but she has the ball in her hands all the time. Her assist-to-turnover ratio in the last 3 games is like 5.5 to 1. This week, she could have been Big 12 Player of the Week. I think she had 20 assists and 3 turnovers in 2 games. So, you know, she accounts for a lot of our team's points, whether through her scoring or giving the ball up. But as she goes, we go. And, you know, I don't think there's any mistake about that. The games we've lost, she hasn't been great. So it's a lot to put on her, but I think she's handled it really well.
And I don't want to say it's been a huge surprise, but Hallie Christofferson really elevated her game. In her junior year, she really seems to be that kind of leader out there that we kind of expected Chelsea Poppins to be this year. But when Pop goes out with that concussion, Hallie really stepped it up and really pulled some of the slack on offense. How has she impressed you this year? And she's got a lot of room. The sky's really the limit for her, it seems like.
Yeah, you're right. And she's a really hard matchup. You know, she's you know, kind of like George Niang is for the men. She can bring you inside, outside. For us, we play Pop and Anna with her. So there's three men in our league that have to guard her. They can't guard her on the block, and then if they put somebody big on her, we'll bring them outside and she can shoot the ball. So she's a really hard matchup, a kid that works extremely hard every single day. And, you know, somebody that, like I said, is having an all Big 12 type of year. And in a year where Pop gets a lot of focus, Nikki gets a lot of focus, you got to start turning your attention to her, but you can't stop everybody. So she's really picked up the slack. And, you know, it was nice for us to go down to Texas and get a win down there when she actually had her worst game of the year. And we've been putting a lot on her plate. But, you know, she only scores 4 or 6 points down there, but we still win by 20. So every night it seems to be somebody picking it up, but it's been a lot of nights where it's been her.
What does Chelsea Poppins mean to this team? I mean, obviously 22 and 18, I think, last game against Kansas State. But she really just brings that physical presence to the team and really kind of gets everybody going. What does she mean to this team?
I mean, she means a great deal, and obviously our fans know that. I mean, she makes hustle play after hustle play. Our fans are always cheering for her. And, you know, she does a great job of getting our kids to understand that you play hard every single possession. And I don't think anybody's going to come here and say that she's the most talented player that we've ever had. She's the most, you know, skilled player, top 100. She was none of that coming out of high school. And she really just gets her baskets, makes a living off playing that much harder than everybody else. And that's what, you know, coaches, high school coaches, college coaches preach all the time. It's all about will and effort and things like that. And, you know, she's a walking example of that. 6'2", really undersized in our league, but still out-rebounds everybody in our league and out-wills people, and that's what gets it done for her.
I think I've heard your dad say this before, but she really exemplifies what an Iowa State player is supposed to be. You know, she's on the court, off the court, works hard, and, you know, that's what a typical Iowan is like, and that's why people enjoy watching her.
Yeah, and I think that's why you know, she's from a small town, farmers and things like that. So, you know, everybody likes people who work hard, and it doesn't matter what you're doing. If people are paying good money to come watch basketball, they want to see the kids work hard, and that's what she does, and that's why they really like her.
Anna Prinz, on the other hand, the other post player next to Chelsea, she's really had a great season too, and she's finally healthy for a full year. I think that's kind of the thing that's really been able to slow her down. She's kind of had her health issues, hasn't played a full season. In her senior year already, she hasn't played a full season at Iowa State, but her numbers are up this year. She's finally healthy. She really seems to be improving a lot every game, too.
She has been, and Anna's been a kid who's come in and does her work every day. You know, for a while she was struggling shooting the ball. She went 3 for 5 from the three-point line at Texas, had 18 points down there against a 6'7" kid. Big kids like to play against big kids. It's a strange deal, and you're like, man, why wouldn't you just want to post up some little 5'10" kid? But she really likes to play against big kids, and when that challenge arises, she brings her game to another level. I mean, she plays as well as anybody against Brittany Griner. She can take people away from the basket. So I've talked to a couple of WNBA scouts. You know, I spent a couple of years as an advanced scout in the WNBA when I was in Chicago and D.C. So I talked to some of those people, and they really like her game. And a 6'7" kid who can shoot the three, that's hard to guard. So she presents a different matchup, a much different matchup than Chelsea Poppins.
She's not the most athletic person on the floor, but when she went up against Brittany Griner, I mean, she had, I think, 15 points and maybe double-digit rebounds against her. And she, like you said, she likes to go up against those taller players, and I think that's when she's playing at her best. She's not, she's so tall, so she can't get those loose balls on the floor like, say, Pop would, but she really is able to seem like she steps up to the challenge when she's asked to.
Yeah, she does. I mean, it's tough for a 6'7" kid to post up when somebody's got their head in the middle of your back, and things like that. So she gets cheap shot low and doesn't get those calls, and when she swings her elbows, kids' heads are right there, instead of. So she does like to play against a bigger kid, and luckily for us, when in the games that really matter, she's going to be playing against taller kids.
Yeah, and then Kid Laskowski, just a freshman. You guys only go 2 deep on the bench. I mean, how important is she to this team? I like to compare kind of to like a Tyrus McGee. Where you come in off the bench, she's really that spark plug and gets you a bucket when you need it. She's been playing well. Obviously, wins her second Big 12 Freshman of the Week or Rookie of the Week, I guess they call it. But she's really been playing well lately too.
She has been, and I've often said, the Tyrus McGee comment. For the men, when he comes in the game at 4 or 5 minutes into the game, all the fans know what to expect, and Kid's kind of the same way. I think she's got a long ways to go to get to the level of Tyrus McGee, but somebody who instantly makes something happen. And recently, it's been a lot of good things. She'll make her mistakes here and there. She's only a freshman, but I think played 32 minutes the other night. Made 4 threes. When she gets it going, she gets it going in a big way, and she's a spark plug. She had 12 points and 8 rebounds against Kansas State. So kind of a nitty-gritty kid who isn't afraid to battle in there. And the kid is only 17 years old. I mean, she doesn't turn 18 until April, and she's already gone through her full year as a freshman. So getting a lot of things done, probably exceeded our expectations, I would say, no doubt about that. And somebody that all of her teammates love, is always the life of the room or whatever you want to call it. So she's a lot of fun to be around.
You guys are hot right now, 3 in a row for you guys, and you got a big game coming up on Thursday down in Norman. What makes this team so tough? I think your dad said earlier today that this is going to be your toughest game besides Baylor. What makes this Oklahoma team such a good team to play, and what kind of challenges do they present you guys?
Well, I think they're kind of similar to us in a sense where they have 2 post players who can score on the block, who can rebound the ball, and they got kids who can shoot it. So it's a hard matchup for us, but one that we match up to because we have similarities, I should say. And so I think it's a game that obviously we played really well here. Nikki Moody was great when we played him here. I think she had 10 or 12 assists, and we had a chance to beat them by 20 or 21 points. So our kids have confidence going down there, know we can win. But they're 8-3, with only few losses. They're top 20 team in the country. So you don't go down there and just roll in and expect to win. But we've played well down there in the past. Not last year, but in recent memory, we've played well down there. So it's an environment. It's a great place to go. They'll have 8,000 fans, and we'll be playing for second place. And really, everybody in the country, the Big 12 is the number 1 team in the country. The Big 12 is the number 1 conference in the country. Baylor's the number 1 team in the country. When you finish second in the Big 12, you're doing something. So that's really what we're playing for. That's what we're telling our kids. Is what we're going down there for.
What's it going to take to finish off, though? I mean, you guys, like you said, you could either finish second or you could maybe finish 7th in the conference. What's it going to take for you guys to finish off strong here in the Big 12?
Well, I think it's just a never being satisfied mentality, and we're 8-4, and that's great, and that's all well and good. But we could finish anywhere from 14-4 to 8-10, and a lot of people talking about NCAA tournament, things like that. We really are focused on the next game, and we want to finish second in the league. I think that's something that we've taken a lot of pride in. We have a standings board in our locker room that completely eliminates Baylor, and it lists the other 9 teams. And if you beat Baylor or if you lose to Baylor, it doesn't matter in our standings board. We've completely eliminated Baylor. So us and Oklahoma are both 8-2. Oklahoma's only played Baylor once. We've played them twice. So we're both 8-2. We're really trying to solidify that second spot.
We went out to Twitter before the show, and we asked some people to send in our tweets for Billy. Kelly Bratter asked, will Bryn Williamson guard Ellenberg for Oklahoma on Thursday, and will the game plan focus on guarding the 3 like against Kansas State? You guys seem to have some success doing that.
Yeah, obviously Bryn Williamson is our version of Chris Babb, a kid who really has embraced that defensive role and has done a great job on some of the best players. Obviously, I'm sure she'll get a look at her, with foul trouble, things like that. You got to throw different bodies at her. It's hard for Bryn to go 40 minutes against one of the best players in the conference. But I think that person's pretty spot on in terms of Bryn getting a look at her at first. And then, obviously, you got to try to take away the 3. Kansas State's a little different. That's the only thing they do. I mean, they shoot 32 threes a game. They average making like 12 threes a game. That's the only way they can beat you. Oklahoma does have a little bit more of an inside presence, so it probably won't be as focused to the 3, but definitely something that we'll keep our eye on.
All right, Billy. Best of luck to you guys on Thursday, and good luck through the rest of the season.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it, man.
Billy Fennelly, assistant head coach of the Iowa State women's basketball team. Stay tuned in the next segment. Dean and I are going to break down the Iowa State game against Texas coming up after this. You're watching Cyclone InCYders. And welcome back to Cyclone InCYders. Kind of wrapping up here, Dean. Just want to kind of get some final thoughts about this Iowa State men's game on Wednesday down in Austin, Texas. What's it going to take? I mean, this is, obviously we said 5-1 Iowa State is in bounce-back games this year. What's it going to take for them to get that 6-1 record?
I honestly think that it comes down to defensive stops. Okay. When I talked to Kody Lucius after the Kansas State game, that's what he said. You know, a lot of it comes down to that. I mean, they've scored 70 points in 20 of their 23 games. Yeah. But when it came down to the end of the Kansas State game, I mean, they were trying to crawl back in it, but they couldn't get stops, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. I'm very interested to see how they match up with Sheldon McClellan actually playing more than 1 minute. Who's going to guard Julian Lewis and who's going to guard Myck Kabongo. That's what I'm keeping an eye on. And I think that they're going to have to take care of the ball. Yeah, McClellan's minutes are down just a little bit, only averaging about 29, 30 minutes a game. Obviously, we said he only played 1 minute against Iowa State. That's going to be the key guy to watch for me. Obviously, Myck Kabongo. We know we're going to keep an eye on him. And I expect him to have a good game, too. I think that he's the kind of guy that doesn't matter if he sat out for 23 games. He's the kind of guy that's going to go out there and get you points no matter what. And they need points. This is a team, Texas team, that only averaged, I think they average less than 70 a game. It's 68 points per game for them. They're going to need a guy like Kabongo to go out there and score, and I think that he's going to do it. I think McClellan, I think he goes out there and scores in double figures. And obviously he's the assist man for them, too. Going to get some key assists, and I think that Texas wins this game. I honestly do. Your thoughts? Oh, man.
Did I throw you a bone there?
Okay. I believe that Iowa State will win this game.
Okay.
I think that, like we mentioned, they're 5-1 in bounce-back games.
Yeah.
I picked Iowa State to lose at Kansas State, but I believe they'll win this one 75-65. I think that it's going to be a bit of a dogfight. Like you said, I believe Myck Kabongo is going to come out as a bit of an energizer bunny. Sheldon McClellan, they didn't even see him, so this is a completely different team. I think it's going to be a very interesting game on the road. Iowa State's 1-4, so I'm very interested. But I do believe Will Clyburn bounces back. I mean, he's been averaging – the guy averages 19 points at home, only 12 on the road, so there's a really big difference, I believe, there. But I think Clyburn bounces back. I think Iowa State bounces back.
I see this as a similar game to the Oklahoma State game earlier this season where Iowa State was right in it. They almost went to overtime, too. It's that controversial kind of end there. But I see this as a very tight game for them. On the road, it's going to be a tough environment. Obviously, Texas having a down season. You know that they have what it takes to win, though. I mean, obviously they're having a down year, but I think with Kabongo back, they're going to get that spark, that energy that they are kind of looking for. When Hoiberg said it earlier today, if your leader is not on the floor, you're going to be struggling, and they've kind of been out of their rhythm right now. Their whole season, they haven't had their point guard. And I mean, with such a young team too, they really need that leader. Obviously, Kabongo is only a sophomore. He's only played only one season, but I think if they have him out there, he kind of leads them.
He's their guy. Yeah. But I like your comparison, though, to Oklahoma State because I believe that both teams are young, both teams are talented, but I believe Oklahoma State's much more talented. They've got Marcus Smart and LeBron Nash are probably two top 15 players. Smart, if not a top 5 player there in the country. But I think Texas isn't quite as talented. Like you said, though, they bring back Sheldon McClellan. I mean, he'll actually play in this game. They get back Myck Kabongo. So I think it'll be close. But I think Iowa State's going to rebound. They need this game if they want to have a chance to be sniffing around for the NCAA Tournament come the end of the year, and I think they're going to get it.
Big thanks to Billy Fennelly, Alex Halstead, and Kody Peterson for coming on with us earlier. We want to remind you to like ISUtv on Facebook and follow us on Twitter for all your Iowa State sports coverage throughout the week. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Cyclone InCYders. Back a week from today at 8 p.m. on Mediacom Channel 18. Thanks for watching, everybody.